Who is Jaclyn Glenn? What does she represent in the year 2019? Jaclyn Glenn is someone who comes on the internet and tells you, despite scientific evidence to the contrary, go ahead, use SSRI antidepressants. Use antidepressant drugs that have been debunked, disproven, that have myriad really serious negative health effects, and that have been proven to have no positive effect aside from what's called the enhanced placebo effect. They don't cure depression. The whole monoamine hypothesis was debunked years ago. She has no interest. She comes on camera and tells you to go ahead and use SSRI antidepressant drugs. Why? 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 Because you should do, she says, whatever feels right for you. And that's the most dangerous advice of all. Jaclyn Glenn is someone who comes on the internet and encourages people to use marijuana. She absolutely lies straight to your face about the scientific evidence that marijuana causes brain damage, that marijuana causes morphological, structural changes in the brain, causes impairment, causes damage to the brain. Notice that. She encourages you to use marijuana. Why?
Why? Why? Why? Why?
Not that marijuana is the cure for anything that's wrong with you, not that it's a treatment, not that it's going to benefit you. Because she thinks you should do whatever feels good. An example that's in some ways parallel to this, and in some ways is an instructive contrast, would be the controversy we had over the vegan YouTuber Sunfruit Dan, who's no longer vegan right now in 2019. This guy, there's no reason why you would have heard of him. He was a little bit known within the vegan scene because he was vegan, and now he's telling people to eat meat. And he was somewhat known in British newspapers because his girlfriend died in a car accident while she was 6 months pregnant with his baby. And there were a lot of details about that case. He went to court. There was the possibility he'd go to prison for it. Sort of drama that got broad public attention. But with that digression aside as to who Sunfruit Dan is or who he was, his YouTube channel, his main YouTube channel, was deleted because he was encouraging people to drink bleach and turpentine as some kind of folk remedy, as some kind of holistic medicine. And the guy's whole current campaign, encouraging vegans to go back to eating meat, is 100% on this basis of doing what feels good. He's preaching now that he's eating meat and he feels great, and whatever feels good must be good. And in the same way before, he preached veganism and drinking bleach and turpentine because whatever feels good. Look, this is not even worth criticizing. But I notice everyone's ready to line up and demonstrate their moral superiority over a piece of crap like Sunfruit Dan. And hey, everyone's willing in a very different way to line up and demonstrate their sense of moral superiority over Onision and his sad sack, three-way love life and all this stuff. Okay? One aspect of the internet in the 21st century seems to be people in the audience who are eager to demonstrate their sense of moral superiority over others. I get it. How many people do you really think could possibly be influenced negatively by this guy, this nutcase, this eccentric, encouraging them to drink bleach? How much damage do you think those videos potentially did or actually did? And now, by contrast, how much damage do you think has been done by Jaclyn Glenn encouraging people to use ayahuasca, by Jaclyn Glenn encouraging people to use SSRI antidepressants? And just to throw out another contrast, how about Cami? How about Supreme Banana on exactly the same issues?
I did ayahuasca in January, and it literally just got rid of my anxiety. Still have no idea how that worked. The most beautiful experience of my life, still to this day. And even if my anxiety did come back, I was able to view it in a different way. I didn't attach myself to it because I had kind of a revolutionary. I had a revelation during my ayahuasca experience.
Jaclyn Glenn comes on the internet and encourages women to go out and get breast augmentation surgery. I just did a Google search for this. I was really surprised. Today in 2019, if you type in breast implant, the autocorrect suggestion I got, the autocomplete suggestion from Google, was breast implant illness. Now in 2019, more than ever before, there is a storm of controversy surrounding the negative health effects, the long-term negative consequences of women having breast implants put in the chest. And in 2019, you don't have to look very far for that evidence. There already was evidence in 2009. There already was discussion of this problem in 1999. But right now in 2019, this is a major mainstream medical controversy, partly just due to the accumulation of data of looking at it and saying, well, a lot of women who have breast implant surgery, sooner or later as the years go by, have really negative health complications. Some of them scientifically, we haven't gotten to the bottom of ideologically. But you know, when you look at it, if you're being a skeptic, in the truest sense of the word skeptic, yeah, it's kind of easy to see how, you know, implanting this, you know, silicone object into your skin is going to have, can reason that one through. She doesn't want you to be rational. She doesn't want you to make choices that are informed by reading scientific studies. She wants you to do what feels right for you. And I think that really is the most dangerous advice of all that she could be offering. There's a lot of discourse within the vegan movement questioning the extent to which we as vegans are like a religion or even like a cult. And you know, I'm vegan, but I'm self-critical. We talk about it for a reason. We're self-critical for a reason. It's not for no reason at all that people are concerned about this cult-like elements of veganism as it emerges as a political movement. But you know, in this respect, in the respect that we're talking about in this video, it's actually the ex-vegans who are to a much greater extent participating in and exhibiting a religious mentality. Because it is the ex-vegans who will say to you, with absolutely no sense of humor and no sense of self-awareness or irony, they will say to you, you have to do what feels right for you. You have to. Don't think about it ethically. Don't think about it ecologically. Don't think about it rationally. If eating a cheeseburger, they say, just suddenly makes you feel amazing, then just go with that feeling. Let the feeling decide. Decide what's healthy, decide what's ethical, decide what's responsible, decide what's right and what's wrong on the basis of a feeling. I want you to divide your life into two parts. One part where you made decisions on the basis of how you felt about something, and one part where you used reason. And then when you look back at your life, when you're 60 years old, 90 years old, I want you to be able to say, the part of my life where I made decisions based on a feeling was called childhood. And the part of my life where I reasoned things through, no matter how hard it was, no matter how much it beat up my ego, no matter how much I had to confront my own ignorance, no matter how counterintuitive and surprising the results of scientific inquiry turned out to be, no matter how onerous and inconvenient the ethical implications of knowing how these things really work, that period of my life where I reasoned things through, where I took on that responsibility, that for me was adulthood.
I had a revelation during my ayahuasca experience that allowed me to recognize my anxiety is not me. But once my depression started coming back, I kind of just fell off of all my positive thinking and mental work and everything, and anxiety was easily slipped in there. And
these same people who will come out and tell you that using a mind-altering drug like ayahuasca, and let's not forget, ayahuasca, a mind-altering hallucinogenic drug, ayahuasca, Jaclyn Glenn has repeatedly encouraged the public to use, even though her own experience with it was negative. That's actually something many of these things have in common. Her own experience with antidepressants was negative. Nevertheless, she says, go ahead, use it, do what feels right for you. Her own experience with ayahuasca was negative. Nevertheless, says, go ahead, use it, do what feels right, it's what's right for you. It's a peculiar pattern here. These same people who will come out and say that ayahuasca cured their anxiety will then tell you that just a few months later, their anxiety came back. You know, the people who claim these miraculous treatments have miraculous benefits, the nature of YouTube as a kind of diachronic, long format journaling medium, it's really much more instructive than an old-fashioned news report on the radio or TV that records just one moment in time. Because we see as these people's lives progress past the moment when they feel they were saved or they were cured by these, nonsensical, non-scientific cures, we see that, in fact, they do experience the same problems.
I went back to my doctor and I told her how the drug was affecting me and how I didn't like the way it made me feel, how it wasn't even really effective anymore, and how it was making me gain weight. The solution to me saying I don't like the way this drug is affecting me was to double the dose. She was like, okay, well right now you're only on 10 milligrams. We're gonna just go ahead and up that to 20. Klonopin is another barbiturate that people can get prescribed for panic attacks and things like that. I'm not the kind of person that has an addictive personality, so I'm not worried about it. I've had the prescription now for like a month. My doctor did mention that there are other types of antidepressants that I might consider in the future that don't cause weight gain. I think Wellbutrin is one, Luvox is one. I was put on 10 milligrams of Lexapro, and I took it for about 6 months. I had really bad side effects. So now we're embarking on reason number one why I'm really scared to talk about this. I do not want to discourage anyone from taking meds. I'm not trying to say that they don't work for some people. Everyone's body reacts differently to different drugs.
Everyone's body reacts differently to different drugs.
So definitely talk to your doctor and figure out what's best.
The most dangerous advice anyone can give you on the internet is do what feels right. Do what feels good. When people encourage you to follow a feeling, they're encouraging you to be irrational rather than rational. They're encouraging you to be childish rather than adult. Thinking rationally, it's not easy. And doing what feels good comes naturally. If I walk out in direct sunlight for 5 minutes, I live in a tropical country, feel that direct sunlight beating down on you. It feels good, makes you feel awake, makes you feel alive. Some instinctual level, you respond to having that sun baking down on you. And people all over the world have made up religious rationales for sunbathing, supernatural, new age, hippie, health rationales, including ancient Taoism in China, down to the lowliest of magical crystal worshipping hippies in our time. There have always been people willing to justify what ultimately is just an irrational feeling that direct sunlight is good for you. And guess what? It's bad. Sunbathing is bad for your health. Sunburn is bad for your health. Sun exposure is basically something you want to minimize. You want to carry a parasol to keep the sun off at all times, especially when you're living here in the tropics. May not seem intuitively obvious, may not be how the sun makes you feel, but it's true. For how many centuries did people drink alcohol and think it gave them a whole range of health benefits? When Europeans first encountered nicotine, when Europeans first encountered cocaine coming straight from the coca leaf, makes you feel good. Caffeine, coffee, tea, all these things in our life. If you're making your decisions based on a feeling, you're going to make the wrong decision again and again and again. What's genuinely good for you, what's genuinely the right thing to do, often feels wrong. And you have to make the mature, sober, adult, detached decision to reason things through and then do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. All this stuff we do on YouTube has a price in blood. Onision making an absolute mess out of his sex life, ruining his marriage, and coming on camera and weeping about it. You know what? Probably influences a lot of people to not have an open relationship. It probably makes a lot of people think, yeah, maybe monogamy, especially when you're raising kids, maybe it's not that bad. It probably makes a lot of people stop and reflect on their lives and think, I don't want to make the same mistakes Onision made. It probably makes a lot of young women think twice before getting into a relationship with an older man who's in a situation like Onision, like an older married man looking for some kind of three-way. It probably makes a lot of people reflect on their lives and do the right thing instead of the wrong thing, because Onision is out here doing the wrong thing and being self-pitying as hell, reflecting on camera. It's not advocacy, it's not some kind of moral cause, and every moral cause that guy pursues, he's terrible at. He tries to preach vegetarianism, sometimes veganism. He's terrible at that. Left-wing causes, gay identity causes, transgender causes. He's terrible at all of it. But I have to admit, I have to give him credit. He tries. From his perspective, he's the hero in his own narrative, standing up for one morally positive cause and another, even if he's falling down flat on his face for every one of those causes. But visibly or invisibly, what Jaclyn Glenn is doing here on YouTube is impacting people's lives. I would say thousands of people's lives negatively. There are people who watch her videos and are encouraged to get plastic surgery, to get breast augmentation, following the same loopy, irrational, do what feels good logic that she preaches. There are people who watch her video and who go out and try ayahuasca. There are people who watch her video and pay for the BetterHelp internet counseling service. That's what she's... There are people who watch her videos and follow her line of reasoning and jump on board with using SSRI drugs, start using antidepressants with her encouragement, even though her own experience has been more negative than positive, so on and so forth. And there are people, definitely thousands of people, who are going to be reassured by her telling them that marijuana doesn't cause brain damage when it's a proven scientific fact that it does, right? There is a cost in blood. There is a really negative impact in the world caused by these YouTube videos. And we're at a point right now where we're willing to question a nutcase like Sunfruit Dan encouraging people to drink diluted bleach as some kind of... People are at least willing to question that. And nobody wants to question just how negative the knock-on consequences are for Jaclyn Glenn out here. Jaclyn Glenn encouraging you to get plastic surgery, do ayahuasca, use antidepressants, smoke marijuana. And those terrible, unthinking, irrational, do what feels good, self-centered, short-term thinking, self-indulgent, ridiculous pieces of advice, irrational pieces of advice, those are going to influence thousands more people than the advice about drinking bleach from that idiot, because it's more plausible and it's wrapped up in a package that's more seductive, more appealing. Yeah, you can get your autographed, semi-nude photograph of Jaclyn now via Patreon.
I mean, really, people like to disrespect my crew, but the fact is that you know my name and I don't know you.